Hey, everybody, this is Chris Woodward. I'm executive editor for Sport Fishing. Welcome to Women in Fishing podcast number 1. Today, we've got as our guest Stephanie Vatalaro, Senior Vice President of Marketing and Communications for the Recreational Boating and Fishing Foundation, and Sarah Harper Burke, Senior Manager of Marketing for Shimano North America Fishing. Welcome, y'all.
Thank you.
First, I just kind of want to get a feeling for what your background is like and what your fishing interests are and your experiences have been in fishing, saltwater or freshwater. Stephanie, tell me a little bit about your fishing background.
I'd love to. Like many of us in the industry, I grew up fishing. So born to a water-loving family in Ohio and got my first taste of fishing on Lake Erie. But really it bloomed when we moved to the Keys, the Florida Keys, when I was about 7. So I did a lot of saltwater fishing growing up. My dad is a fishing guide. And I now obviously work in the industry in the DC area, but spend a lot of time on the water. Learning the freshwater thing, it's not my go-to, but I enjoy it all really. And it's the memories, it's the fun, the big fish, the small fish, all of it. I love it.
That's great. How about you, Sarah?
I'm actually a novice to the activity so far. I've been in the industry for 3 years now, and being based here in Charleston, South Carolina, I've had this great opportunity to get to know fishing through our offshore and inshore opportunities here in the Southeast, and then fishing in the afternoons in our neighborhood pond for freshwater with my son. It's been a lot of fun getting to know the sport and getting to know the folks within the industry, and I'm completely, becoming obsessed with it. It's fantastic.
Great. Well, do you have a favorite type of fishing right now? I mean, what's your go-to if I said, let's go, what do you want to do?
Well, because it's all quite the adventure for me. I really have been enjoying the high-speed trolling for wahoo.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's a good winter activity. How about you, Stephanie? Do you have a favorite fishery?
Well, I have to say it's my hometown. I just got to, for New Year's, do a little bit of backcountry fishing in Everglades National Park in the Florida Keys. It's just an amazing fishery, and all the different ecology and wildlife you see out there. It's just, I love it.
Nice. Yeah, I'm kind of an inshore person myself. I fished a lot offshore when I was younger. I've kind of gone inshore, and now I have a kayak, and I spend a lot of time fishing for redfish and trout out of my kayak. And
Nice.
I very much enjoy sort of the slow pace of that, though I will step on a skiff or a bay boat anytime and do that as well. So, okay. Well, Stephanie, also give us a summary of what RBFF is doing right now to encourage more women to fish. I know you've got a dedicated program and some incredible avenues. Give us some information about that, please.
Well, first of all, we run a campaign to get newcomers into fishing, and our mission is to grow participation in recreational boating and fishing. And so we're always looking for that audience that's, most likely to take up the sport, stick with it over the years, et cetera. And a few years ago, through research, we identified this amazing opportunity. We were seeing a lot of women come into the sport every year, like really high numbers as newcomers, but they're also dropping out at really high rates, which we don't like to see. And when you start to dig into that, we learned that one of the main reasons is they don't see themselves in the activity, like literally. When they go into a store that has fishing gear, like a, big box store or a tackle shop, they don't see themselves in catalogs. They don't feel like they belong. So we created the Women Making Waves campaign. And the first goal of that campaign was to drive awareness. We wanted women to be aware that fishing was an option, and to drive representation. We wanted them to see themselves on the water and feel like they belong. So we started this advertising campaign in 2018, and it really caught on in the industry and with women. And we're hoping to take it a little bit further this year. We do social events, we do advertising and PR. We invite women to go out fishing with us and have them create great content that they can share with their followers. It just keeps growing a little bit every year.
Great. And Sarah, how has Shimano partnered in this effort, and what are Shimano's goals with regard to encouraging women to fish?
Yeah, like Stephanie, we definitely see the same data points, right? With over 50% of the US population being female, and either directly controlling or influencing up to 85% of consumer purchases in the US. We know that this is an audience who has an interest in our sport, but as Stephanie said, is churning out really quickly. And so with our consumer facing aspect of commitment to a female audience is, again, that representation matters, that we're ensuring that we're including female anglers in our photo shoots and videos, and as well as having more female content creators who have a different eye and angle of what inclusion can look like. So that's the consumer facing piece that we work with. The other piece is the industry. And the other point of data is when you have companies that have female executives or women on your board, the direct impact to your bottom line can be pretty substantial. And so we're here to help in that effort of RBFF in networking and mentoring and creating different programs and connection points for women in the industry so that we're growing the industry and supporting our financial health.
Can you give me an example of something that you've done along those lines?
Just this last summer at the ICAST trade show, we hosted an event at our booth for the Women Making Waves initiative, where we got women together and, tried to ensure that we were connecting women. Where you're on a trade show floor, you might be the only woman on your company. And you'll see other women in the hallway. There's never really an opportunity to get to know them or network and see what their challenges or similar wins can be within their organizations. So having an opportunity to connect and better understand each other is how we can all be growing forward.
I understand too that you've been involved in other sports in terms of marketing in the biking industry and in the skiing industry. Can you see any comparisons to women's participation in those sports versus fishing and what's going on with us?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And again, in both of those kind of buckets of understanding for both consumers and industry, when it comes to outdoor, ski, and bike, they have the similar challenges of connecting with their audience and making sure that women can see themselves and their families as women make a lot of decisions for what their family activities and recreational outlets can be. Is that representation to show a pathway of participation. And then those industries also have the same struggle of ensuring that women are staying in the marketplace and staying employed.
Obviously, what we're doing right now is kind of an attempt to, bring that representation into a content creation situation, particularly because my background, obviously, I've been in the industry for many, many years, and I've been an angler for 50 years. So it's, it has always been something to me that I've wanted to expand out and include other women in this sport, because it is wonderful. What are we going to do to lead them to the water so they can drink or fish?
Yeah, I'll chime in on that. I think there's a lot of barriers we're facing here, right? There is, we've mentioned already, the representation barrier. Women need to literally see themselves in the pages of the magazine and advertisements and other things. I think there's an intimidation factor. If you didn't grow up in fishing, if you haven't done it for 20 years, you might think that it's very high tech. And certainly it can be, but it doesn't have to be, right? You can start with a rod and a reel and a bucket and some worms and you're good to go. But when you look at the advertising that's out there and the communications going out, you think of it as expensive, you think of it as a big destination thing that you have to maybe drive 2 hours from your house to get to, and that it's very high tech. So there's that intimidation factor. The representation also hits on belonging. We need to create belonging for women. We need to promote clubs, classes, things that women can get involved, like you said, with other women. You had that amazing fishing trip. State agencies are doing things like that. They have some programs called Becoming an Outdoors Woman. There are certainly groups and clubs online that people can join. We need to get rid of that notion that it's an old boys club. I think it's a very common notion and it's just accepted. And if you grew up around it, you accept it and move on with it. But if we really want to turn the tide here and get more women involved, we need to challenge that and remove some of these barriers so we can appeal to a younger, more diverse audience.
Indeed.
And I can riff directly off of that, as it is a challenge for Shimano. Shimano as a brand, we are a premium hard goods brand that has a foundation in innovative technology. That's who we are. That's what we make. Women connect with value experience and making memories. And so our challenge is, how do we pivot our storytelling to be inclusive of family connectedness, memory making, families together, while staying true to our DNA? And so that's the challenge as a vendor that we have, to ensure that we can still reach out to that audience, be inclusive, but not change what it is we're here to do.
Exactly. We don't want to alienate what you might call our base. The people who brought us to the dance, we don't want to alienate those people, but we also want to, as you say, grow the sport, include women, have them feel included, have them feel like they can enter the sport without condemnation or accusation or anything like that. It's a lot of mindset bending, I guess, is one of the ways I can put it.
Absolutely. And just to support, I know we're kind of ping-ponging here, but to support what Sarah was just saying, we do a report every year, the special report on fishing, that looks at participation by demographics and whatnot. And what's really interesting is we ask why people fish, right? And for men, one of the top reasons that always comes out, number one, is to catch fish. Like they want that fish and they want that big fish. Often for women, it's to spend time with family and friends. So it's a different mindset. And I commend Sport Fishing for launching into this podcast series, because I think it's the start of creating the representation and creating that community and belonging that women need to feel welcome into fishing.
I will also just add, we're not just doing this because it's a feel good, the right thing to do. We're doing this to expand the industry and expand the sport so that we're all more successful in our future endeavors.
Stephanie, how has Women Making Waves project been received by the women that have been involved? Is it growing? Or did you start with 2 women and go to 20? How about how is the industry perceiving it, and how do men perceive it?
Well, it's had a fantastic response. And just as an example, female participation in fishing was up 10% in 2020. We've seen an increase every year since we launched the campaign. And the industry has received it very well. We have hosted numerous industry events where we gather women. And, you know, earlier Sarah was talking about what we did at ICAST together this past year. Well, that was the 3rd time we've had a gathering, that type of gathering. And I will say, the first one we did on a whim. We had 2 weeks and we just started putting out notifications, come meet up with us, come talk to us. And we probably had about 50 people. What would you say we had, Sarah? I mean, it was well over 100.
Yeah, it was probably close to 150 folks came, which was fantastic.
Wow.
Yeah. So every year, both on the industry and the consumer side, we see a little bit of growth. And what makes me feel good about it too is that organizations like Shimano and others, every year we're seeing more interest in engaging women in the sport. We're seeing more folks come to us and say, how can we get involved? So it's growing for sure.
Great. How do the men in your world and either of your worlds see the promotion of women in fishing?
When you have good leadership in these organizations, and there is good leadership within this industry, it's hard not to get behind growing the sport, growing the industry, and growing your financial bottom line.
Yeah, it's a pragmatic type thing when it comes to others in the industry. That's good. I mean, I remember 15 years ago sitting on a panel about emerging markets for American Sport Fishing Association's annual meeting. talking about women in the marketplace. And I know there was reluctance at that time because in marketing surveys, nobody saw the market happening. Nobody saw women coming in and wanting to buy equipment. But I think that's changed. I mean, from what you're saying, Sarah, it definitely has. Do we have any idea why? Is it because this next generation of women is feeling more promoted, more in tune with outdoor activities? Can you put a finger on it?
It's kind of the why now question, right? Like, why is it resonating now? Because you're right, through history, there have been multiple times when discussion about women in the marketplace came up. And I've learned a lot from folks like yourself and others who have worked in the industry a long time about those initiatives. I think, you know, as a country, this sort of idea of empowering women, it's something that's really catching on, right? And so it's a good time culturally to be engaging with women and trying to get them more involved in our activity. I also think the pandemic really gave the activity a shot in the arm, right? It was something that when people were stuck at home, they couldn't go out in groups. It was something you could do outside safely while social distancing. And I think that campaigns like Take Me Fishing and our Women Making Waves initiative, along with others who are out there showing the benefits of the experience, the mental health benefits, the family togetherness, I think that really resonated with people. I wish I could have the numbers, the participation numbers earlier, but we won't see 2021 numbers until this spring to know how our campaign did this past year. But like I said, every year we keep seeing those numbers creep up and that the message is resonating. So now we're working to try to get the industry to embrace it more.
Stephanie, can you share some of the specific plans that you have for 2022 projects?
So I can't share everything. No, I'm just kidding. Well, we are going to continue to lean into this Women Making Waves campaign. There's some due diligence we need to do first before we can expand it. We're planning to do some research this winter that we're going to roll out to stakeholders in the spring or early summer to help them better engage women in the industry. Digging into our research and insights, what we're really seeing that supports this is that women are the gateway to families. Okay, so right now for Take Me Fishing, our target audience is something we call active social families. These are families who are into the outdoors, but maybe haven't picked up fishing yet. And they're really active on social media. They get very motivated by, you know, posting that picture on Instagram or TikTok or whatnot. So, you know, as Sarah mentioned before, moms are the ones who plan activities. Moms they manage the calendars. They approve 70 to 80% of major consumer spending decisions. We're going to be doing more outreach to support women, initially through social media and PR this year, but culminating in a whole new Take Me Fishing campaign next year. That's kind of what we're planning.
Can both of you offer our female viewers any tips for getting involved in fishing or the fishing industry? I mean, Sarah, you did talk about getting involved in marketing and fishing and, you know, working for a great company like Shimano, but what about just tips for starting that fishing challenge, going out and getting a rod and reel and catching fish?
I can share from firsthand experience. Okay. Ask a lot of questions, but don't get bogged down in the details. It's still fishing. You do just need, you know, keep it simple, but continue to ask a lot of the whys. And then for me, invite yourself along sometimes, because you never know who's going to say yes, and you never know what you're going to get out of that experience. And so that's what's kind of enabled me to experience a lot of different styles of fishing. Is just keep yourself curious of what's out there and see where the openings are, where you can, you know, be available to new adventure.
I kind of see there's like 3 areas you need to understand to start fishing, right? There's the how to fish, there's the where to fish, and there's the licensing piece. When it comes to how to fish, there's a lot of great online information that can teach you how to do this. Again, keep it simple. If you're not an online person, a lot of state agencies, known as Fish and Wildlife Agencies or DNRs, offer classes, or look for clubs in your area if you like learning, hands-on in person. Invite yourself. I love that. Where to fish? Again, lots of great online resources. TakeMeFishing.org is one of them. If you have a local tackle shop, walk in there and start asking questions. What are great places to go? What do I need? Or again, that state agency can kind of give you those basics. And the licensing piece. And I don't think a lot of folks understand how this works. Typically, every state is different, so check with your state agency, but typically over the age of 16, you need an annual fishing license to go fishing. And what people don't realize is that fee that is collected for that fishing license, 100% of that goes back to the state agency for doing conservation work in the fishery. It's for clean waterways, it's for stocking fish and habitat projects. You're giving back to conservation simply by purchasing that license. So it's an important way to keep that resource protected while you're playing on it. And it feels good.
Great. On that note, thank you both for your participation. And this is Chris Woodward for Sport Fishing, Women in Fishing. Thank you.
Thank you.